This is the Solid Signal podcast for the week of August 2nd, 2021. If you believe the news articles that are available, this is going to be the month that DirecTV officially splits from AT&T. As you might recall from about 6 months ago, AT&T made the decision to split off DirecTV, with the company itself, AT&T itself, retaining 70% ownership, but giving 30% ownership to a separate group and transferring operational control to that separate group eventually. Now, everybody who's been involved in DirecTV's entertainment unit, the unit which has AT&T TV and DirecTV in it, and UVerse, although that doesn't really matter so much, they're all spinning off. So this is going to be kind of a soft change because, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference internally or externally for a little while. At least that's kind of the thought. But it's a good idea at this point to look back a little bit, talk about what expectations there are, and I think, go forward optimistically. First of all, AT&T took control of DirecTV in 2015, and at the time, the company was pretty much at its peak. It had been growing subscribers for a solid decade. The equipment was brand new. There was a lot of new excitement there. Services were being added, and this was also a time when they were starting to roll out their live TV product, which is currently called AT&T TV. Flash forward 5 years, and DirecTV has lost subscribers every year since the AT&T acquisition. AT&T TV is a good product, but it's not really the dominant product in the space, unfortunately, even though I really think it deserves to be. It's really very good. And the world has just changed an awful lot, at least the world of entertainment. There's other things about the world that have changed since 2015, but this isn't that kind of podcast, my friends. So why did this happen? Well, it's very easy to say, on-demand streaming apps like Netflix and Hulu and whatever kind of took over the world, and that's what people really want now. So it made satellite television seem less important, and prices kept going up. So people were really looking to eliminate these, large expenses from their lives, and all of that's kind of true. And and it's there were a lot of people who moved over to streaming apps only and gave up on live TV or just used an antenna. That's 100% true. But the real question is, why didn't AT&T kind of pivot a little bit to do something about that? I think there was a lot of emphasis put on the live streaming product, which, like I said, is currently called AT&T TV. It was called DirecTV Now when it first launched. And yet the demand for live streaming has been, I think, overall less than what was anticipated. It's been years since I've seen a DirecTV commercial anywhere except on DirecTV, when they basically are doing them for free. And there was a time they were everywhere. AT&T stopped advertising DirecTV because I think they looked at it as a legacy product. They looked at it as, well, okay, we're not going to fix it because it's not broken, but we're not going to necessarily promote it because we don't think it's going to grow. And what happened? Subscriber numbers kind of dropped. And so it really didn't matter to AT&T because they were carrying this company. And yes, they continue to have small operating profits in most cases, but they were not growing, and they didn't care because, overall it was not hurting the bottom line. But now you're going to have a new company that's really accountable to itself. If AT&T, didn't really care in the past, well, new DirecTV is going to care. They are going to care if they lose subscribers. They are going to care if they can't get costs under control. And getting costs under control is a really, really key part of this. I have to explain that to you because, a large percentage of that DirecTV bill that you pay is going straight to the content providers. A big chunk of it, it's been estimated $30 to $40 a month, is going straight into Disney's pocket. That's a huge amount. If they don't get some of these costs under control over the coming years, I think that's what's really going to be problematic. But the thing is, I suspect they know that because they're going to have to report every time. They're going to have to report what their you know, what their profit and loss has been. They're not a publicly traded company at this point. They're, like I said, held by AT&T and TPG Capital, which when the deal closes, that's what it's going to be. So it's not like they're going to have, stockholders who are really going to be upset, but they are going to have to focus on themselves. And I think that's the most exciting part of this. The folks inside DirecTV that I've talked to are incredibly excited about this change, even more excited than they were about the AT&T takeover. And look, I'm one of those folks who is really enthusiastic about the idea of the AT&T takeover because it could have meant that AT&T poured a massive amount of money into DirecTV, into making it the best that it could possibly be, instead of really not developing any hardware, which is what they did, and not really focusing on keeping costs under control. See, now I think that people feel like they're going to be free to make these changes that are very customer positive changes, that are going to be things that really make a difference to the experience, like keeping costs under control and pushing out some new hardware. Some of the hardware that we're offering at Solid Signal is the same stuff that we were offering 10 years ago. And folks, it still works. It's just not super exciting anymore. And that's, when you think about the history of DirecTV since 1994, what's really been exciting about it has been that kind of disruptor mentality. When I first got DirecTV, I got it because they had 4 times the number of channels of my local cable company, and they did it for half the price. Yeah, I had to buy the equipment outright, which is what you did back then. And you had to pay for installation, which is what you did back then. But it very quickly paid for itself. And it just was a better experience. And that was kind of how DirecTV grew, is because they offered an alternative which was really, really better. It's the same kind of thing that people thought when they were getting streaming. Oh, well, I'm going to cut costs. I'm going to have all this extra content. And now we're realizing that our streaming addiction is costing us more than our cable and satellite addiction ever did, which puts satellite in the role of being the disruptor once again. If they can find a way to manage costs, get hardware that's really desirable, put it all together in one package that really makes people feel good about the entertainment that they're getting, it's going to be a win, huge win. And I think that they're capable of doing it. That's the most important thing. I'm super pumped about this, friends, because I think that if you haven't given DirecTV a look lately, you're going to be very pleased in the next 6 months with what you get. Not that I'm coming at you with insider information, just that I think that's where it's going to go. And if you've counted out DirecTV in the past, you should really think about that, because there's a bunch of really dedicated folks out there who are finally going to be free to make the kind of change that they want. Anyway, that's it for the Solid Signal podcast for this week. I look forward to hearing those comments, seeing those likes and subscribes, and I will personally be back here again next week with the best information, crotchetiness, and podcasting that I can possibly do.